The first warning came from the Quantum Entanglement Communication Network, a system so advanced that even its existence was a closely guarded secret. Dr. Aidan Nakamura, head of Sinological Threat Assessment, felt the quantum resonance shift milliseconds before the first visual confirmation. His augmented neural implant flooded with data streams, each one a fragmentary glimpse of impending doom. Orbital Station Prometheus had been more than just a research facility. It was humanity's first true foothold beyond Earth, a testament to decades of collaborative international effort. Constructed from advanced carbon composite materials that could theoretically withstand direct asteroid impacts, it represented humanity's most sophisticated extraterrestrial infrastructure. The Zornak attack was not just an assault. It was a surgical strike designed to decapitate humanity's technological leadership. Within the station, a diverse crew of researchers, engineers, and military personnel scrambled. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's younger brother, Marco, a quantum systems engineer, was coordinating emergency protocols from the central command hub. His fingers danced across holographic interfaces, rerouting critical data and initiating emergency evacuation sequences. "Magnetic shielding at 62% and dropping," shouted Lieutenant Kwesi Okeke, an African Union defense specialist monitoring the station's defensive systems. His voice was calm, professional, the product of years of advanced military training that emphasized psychological resilience under extreme conditions. The first plasma torpedo struck the station's outer research wing, a module dedicated to xenobiological studies. Decades of irreplaceable research vaporized in a millisecond. Specimen collections documenting potential extraterrestrial microbial life. Genetic archives that represented humanity's most advanced biological understanding became cosmic dust. Captain Maya Chen, suspended in the station's zero-gravity medical rehabilitation center, felt the initial impact through her cybernetic nerve interface. Her prosthetic leg, a marvel of biomechanical engineering she'd received after a previous deep space mission, registered the structural breach before her human senses could process the information. What the Zornak didn't understand was that every human on Prometheus was more than just a victim. They were nodes in a complex, adaptive network that had been preparing for potential extraterrestrial conflict for generations. In the research labs, Dr. Hiroshi Tanaka worked with inhuman speed. As the plasma wave began to consume the station's outer sections, he initiated a protocol that would become legendary. Using quantum encryption techniques developed in secret over decades, he began uploading critical research data directly into the quantum communication network. Terabytes of scientific knowledge transformed into quantum entangled information, capable of reconstruction even if the physical medium was destroyed. Data packet sequence Gamma 7 initiated. Tanaka muttered, blood trickling from his nose as the neural strain of massive data transfer took its toll. His body was literally sacrificing itself to preserve humanity's collective knowledge. Marco Rodriguez watched in a mixture of horror and professional detachment as sections of the station began to decompress. Emergency force fields flickered, holding back the vacuum of space. Automated systems began sealing critical sections, preserving what could be saved. The attack lasted precisely 17 minutes and 42 seconds. When it was over, Orbital Station Prometheus was reduced to an expanding cloud of debris. 12 million souls, scientists, engineers, military personnel, and their families were gone. What the Zornak didn't comprehend was the nature of human resilience. This was not an end. This was a beginning. In a hidden command center deep beneath the Andes Mountains, a system came online. Project Phoenix, humanity's most classified emergency response protocol, activated. Quantum processors that had been dormant for decades began to pulse with measured, calculated energy. The first transmission was simple, a single line of code, encrypted across multiple quantum communication channels. Total war, the universe had just declared war on humanity, and humanity was about to respond. The Global Response Center beneath the Swiss Alps was a marvel of underground engineering, known officially as the International Collaborative Defense Network. ICDN. It represented humanity's most sophisticated crisis management facility. Here, representatives from every major nation and countless private research organizations converged in a space that defied traditional geopolitical boundaries. Dr. Arya Patel, a quantum systems theorist from the Indian Space Research Organization, stood before a holographic display that pulsed with near-living complexity. Her team had been working on a revolutionary concept: distributed intelligence networks that could adapt faster than any centralized command structure. "We're not rebuilding," she explained to the assembled global leaders, her voice cutting through the stunned silence. "We're reimagining our entire approach to interstellar defense." The room was a testament to human diversity. General Miguel Santos from the Brazilian Unified Defense Force stood next to Dr. Liu Wei, a Chinese neurological enhancement specialist. Beside them, Dr. Fatima Al-Rashid from the United Arab Emirates Quantum Research Institute worked alongside Professor Alexander Volkov, representing a consortium of Russian technological institutes. What made this gathering unique was not just its global nature, but its complete abandonment of traditional competitive models. The Zornak attack had done what decades of diplomatic efforts could not: created a truly unified human response. Deep beneath the facility, a different kind of preparation was underway. The Distributed Adaptive Response Kernel, DARK project, was no ordinary artificial intelligence. Developed through a combination of quantum computing, neuromorphic engineering, and breakthrough neural network algorithms, DARK was designed to be something entirely new. Dr. James Chen, lead architect of the DARK project, explained it to his inner circle. "Traditional AI follows programmed parameters," he said, manipulating holographic representations of neural networks. DARK doesn't just learn. It evolves. Each computational cycle is a form of evolutionary adaptation. The system was distributed across thousands of quantum computing nodes worldwide. No single location could be targeted. Destroy one node, and the others would immediately redistribute and compensate. It was a living, breathing technological organism. In orbital research stations that had survived the initial attack, a new breed of human was emerging. Enhanced through a combination of genetic modification, cybernetic integration, and advanced training, these were not traditional soldiers or scientists. They were hybrid defenders, each one a walking arsenal of human potential. Sarah Okoye, a Nigerian-Canadian neural interface specialist, underwent a radical procedure that integrated her consciousness directly with advanced combat systems. Her body was a marvel of biomechanical engineering: synthetic muscle fibers that could withstand extreme environmental conditions, neural implants that processed information at speeds that would have been considered impossible a decade earlier. "We're not just preparing for a war," she told her medical team during the final integration process. "We're preparing to redefine what it means to be human." The economic response was equally revolutionary. Global markets, instead of collapsing, began a systematic restructuring. Entire industrial sectors were rapidly converted to support the new defense initiative. Rare earth mining operations were accelerated, semiconductor production was decentralized, and a massive global resource allocation began. Private corporations that had previously competed now worked in unprecedented collaboration. SpaceX, Huawei's Advanced Research Division, the European Space Agency, and dozens of other organizations pooled their most advanced technologies. Patents were shared instantly. Research was made completely transparent. In underground laboratories across the planet, breakthrough technologies emerged daily. Nanofabrication techniques that could produce complex molecular structures in minutes. Adaptive material sciences that could create structures capable of self-repair. Genetic modification techniques that could enhance human capabilities beyond previous limitations. The Zornak had made a critical miscalculation. They thought they were attacking a fractured, competitive species. Instead, they had triggered humanity's most powerful survival mechanism: collective adaptation. Dr. Arya Patel looked up from her quantum network display, a slight smile crossing her face. "They wanted a war," she muttered. We're going to give them something far more dangerous. As the holographic displays continued to pulse and shift, humanity prepared, not just for defense, not just for revenge, for transformation. The Zornak diplomatic nexus hung in space like a crystalline nightmare, a massive space station composed of interconnected prismatic structures that pulsed with alien bioengineered technologies. It was the central hub of their galactic administrative network, a place where decisions affecting thousands of star systems were made. They never saw the first attack coming. Specialist Area Rodriguez, no relation to Alina, but equally brilliant, sat in a nondescript control center buried beneath the Atacama Desert. Her workspace was a symphony of holographic interfaces and quantum entanglement communication nodes. What appeared to be a simple workstation was actually the most sophisticated information warfare platform ever created. Her target was not the Zornak's military infrastructure. It was something far more insidious. The attack began with a mathematical virus, a computational weapon that was part algorithm, part living code. It didn't simply infiltrate systems. It rewrote the fundamental logical foundations of the Zornak's computational networks. Prime Coordinator Dexinal of the Zornak Consensus first noticed something was wrong when the station's primary decision-making algorithms began producing increasingly erratic outputs. Diplomatic communiques became nonsensical. Strategic projections dissolved into complex, recursive mathematical spirals that defied logical interpretation. Anomaly detected in primary computational matrix announced the station's AI interface, but the AI itself was already infected, its warning a part of the broader computational breakdown. What humans understood, and the Zornak did not, was that information was the ultimate weapon. Each line of code was a potential battlefield. Each algorithm could be a devastating strike. Across multiple star systems, Zornak communication networks began to fracture. Navigation systems in their most advanced warships started producing impossible routing solutions. Entire fleet squadrons found themselves locked in computational loops, their sophisticated AI unable to break free of increasingly complex mathematical paradoxes. Dr. Marcus Kim, lead architect of the Information Warfare Initiative, watched the cascading system failures with a clinical detachment. It's not about destruction, he explained to his team. It's about rendering their entire computational infrastructure fundamentally unreliable. The virus was designed with a terrifying sophistication. It didn't just attack, it learned. Each interaction with a Zornak system provided new data, new vectors of potential manipulation. The computational weapon was evolving in real time, becoming more complex with each millisecond of interaction. Diplomatic channels became a nightmare of miscommunication. Zornak administrative centers began issuing contradictory orders. Military deployment algorithms produced routes that would send warships directly into stellar masses. Resource allocation systems calculated distributions that made no logical sense. But the true psychological warfare was just beginning. Concurrent with the computational attack, humanity began broadcasting. Not messages of war, but something far more devastating. A systematic, meticulously documented historical record of Zornak atrocities. Every conquered civilization, every planetary genocide, every cultural erasure. The broadcasts were engineered with quantum-encrypted communication techniques that could penetrate even the most sophisticated alien communication barriers. They weren't just transmissions. They were carefully constructed narrative weapons designed to systematically dismantle the Zornak's galactic reputation. Refugee species that had long suffered under Zornak oppression began to take notice. The carefully maintained facade of galactic order was crumbling, not through military might, but through the precise application of information and historical accountability. We're not just fighting a war, Dr. Kim said, watching the cascading system failures. We're putting an entire civilization on trial. In the Atacama Control Center, Specialist Area Rodriguez allowed herself the briefest moment of satisfaction. Her fingers danced across quantum interfaces, each movement a potential strike against an enemy that was only now beginning to understand the true nature of the conflict. The Zornak had declared war on humanity, believing they were attacking a primitive species. Instead, they had awakened something far more dangerous. A civilization that understood that the most profound weapons were not built from metal and plasma, but from information, context, and an understanding of the most complex system of all, consciousness itself. The first counterstrikes had begun, and humanity was just getting started. The Xenobiological Research Facility in the Mariana Trench was humanity's most classified biological warfare development center. Located 7 miles beneath the ocean's surface, it was protected by layers of geological shielding, quantum-encrypted security systems, and an environment so hostile that traditional reconnaissance was impossible. Dr. Camila Nowak moved through the facility's sterilization chambers with the precision of a surgeon. Her team had been working on something far beyond a conventional biological weapon. They were designing a living information system that would fundamentally reshape biological warfare. The primary target was the Zornak's unique neurological architecture. Unlike most known sentient species, the Zornak possessed a distributed neural network that spanned their entire body. Each cell was both a computational and communication node, creating a living, breathing computational matrix that made their species uniquely vulnerable to specific types of targeted interventions. "We're not creating a weapon," Dr. Nowak explained to her core research team. "We're developing a strategic biological intervention." The key was a synthetic prion-like agent dubbed Prometheus Protocol. It wasn't a virus in the traditional sense. It was a self-modifying genetic algorithm that could penetrate and rewrite neural communication pathways at the molecular level. In the facility's primary research chamber, a captured Zornak specimen floated in a carefully maintained biosuspension chamber. Acquired through a complex extraction operation that had taken years of planning, the specimen was the culmination of humanity's most advanced xenobiological research. Dr. Hiroshi Tanaka, a genetic recombination specialist, worked alongside Dr. Nowak. His augmented hands moved with microscopic precision, manipulating genetic structures that would have been impossible to comprehend just decades earlier. "Look here," he said, projecting a holographic representation of the Prometheus agent. "Traditional biological weapons seek to destroy. We're creating something that fundamentally alters the base communication infrastructure of an entire species." The Prometheus Protocol had multiple layers of sophistication. Its primary function was to gradually modify the Zornak's neural communication pathways, creating cascading systemic disruptions that would render their distributed intelligence progressively less effective. But it was more than just a weapon of destruction. It was a tool of strategic intervention. Each iteration of the protocol could be precisely tuned. Some versions would temporarily disable critical neural communication nodes. Others would selectively modify memory pathways. Some could even be programmed to trigger specific behavioral modifications at predetermined intervals. In the adjacent quantum computing center, Dr. Elena Rodriguez oversaw the computational modeling of the protocol's potential implementations. Millions of simulations ran simultaneously, each one exploring potential variations and outcomes. "We're not just fighting a war," she muttered, watching the holographic displays shift and change. "We're conducting a precise surgical intervention on an entire species." The ethical debates had been intense. Humanity had long prided itself on moral superiority, and the development of such a sophisticated biological intervention pushed the boundaries of accepted warfare protocols. But the Zornak's initial attack had changed everything. Deep space communication intercepts suggested the Zornak were beginning to notice the first subtle effects. Ships reported inexplicable communication breakdowns. Strategic planning algorithms began producing increasingly erratic outputs. What made the Prometheus Protocol truly terrifying was its adaptability. Each interaction with a Zornak neural network provided additional data, allowing the protocol to become more sophisticated with each deployment. Captain Maya Chen, reviewing the preliminary reports from forward reconnaissance units, understood the profound implications. "This isn't just about winning a war," she said during a classified briefing. This is about fundamentally changing the nature of interspecies conflict. In the Mariana Trench facility, Dr. Noack allowed herself a moment of reflection. Humanity had been pushed to the brink. But instead of responding with blind destruction, they had created something far more nuanced, a strategic biological intervention that was part weapon, part communication, part evolutionary catalyst. The first wave of Prometheus Protocol agents was ready for deployment. The universe was about to witness a new form of warfare. The Galactic Communication Hub orbited a neutron star, a testament to interstellar engineering that predated humanity's first satellite. Operated by the Neutral Coordination Council, a loose confederation of species that had managed galactic communications for millennia, it was supposed to be the most secure communication nexus in known space. Zarek Thax, a Lyrian communication specialist, first noticed the anomaly during a routine quantum encryption verification. The transmission didn't trigger any of the standard warning systems. It simply appeared. At first, it seemed like a standard historical documentation. But this was no ordinary broadcast. The transmission began with raw, unfiltered visual records, not carefully curated propaganda, but unedited documentation of Zornak atrocities, body cam footage from survivors of planetary genocides, archaeological records of destroyed civilizations, personal testimonies preserved through quantum data storage techniques that maintained perfect fidelity. Dr. Aisha Okonkwo, head of the Xen Archaeological Restoration Project, had spent decades collecting these records. Her team had developed breakthrough archival technologies that could reconstruct historical narratives with unprecedented depth and emotional resonance. Each transmission was a carefully crafted narrative weapon. The broadcasts didn't just show events, they contextualized them. Advanced linguistic algorithms translated not just words, but emotional nuances. Viewers could experience the trauma, the loss, the systematic destruction inflicted by the Zornak across centuries of galactic expansion. In the communication hub, species representatives watched in stunned silence. The Zornak had always maintained a carefully constructed narrative of galactic peacekeepers, benevolent administrators who brought order to chaotic star systems. These transmissions systematically dismantled that mythology, piece by painful piece. A Krellnax diplomat, tentacles writhing with agitation, turned to Zarek Thax. How are these transmissions bypassing our security protocols? Zara didn't respond immediately. The transmission was doing something far more sophisticated than simply breaking through communication barriers. It was rewriting the very context of galactic history. Each broadcast was a quantum-encrypted masterpiece of narrative engineering. Machine learning algorithms adapted the content in real time, tailoring the emotional impact to each receiving species' psychological profile. What the Krellnax saw was subtly different from what the silicon-based Quarren would perceive. Dr. Marcus Kim, the mastermind behind the Psychological Warfare Initiative, explained the concept to his team in a secure briefing. "We're not just sharing information," he said. "We're conducting a massive distributed empathy transfer." The most insidious aspect was the documentation's absolute veracity. Every frame, every testimony was meticulously authenticated. Advanced forensic reconstruction technologies could prove the historical accuracy down to the molecular level. Refugee species that had long been silenced found their voices amplified. The Mirak, nearly wiped out by Zornak expansion centuries ago, saw their entire cultural history reconstructed and broadcast. The Jantu, reduced to a few thousand survivors, watched their lost worlds come back to life through quantum-preserved archaeological records. In the Galactic Communication Hub, something unprecedented began to happen. Species that had been isolated, paranoid, and competitive started to communicate. Discussion channels that had been dormant for generations suddenly sparked to life. The Zornak's response was telling. They attempted to block the transmissions to discredit the sources. But each attempt only drew more attention, more scrutiny. Captain Maya Chen watched the cascading effects from a hidden observation post. "Information is the ultimate weapon," she muttered. "And we've just dropped the most precise bomb in galactic history." The psychological warfare wasn't about destroying the Zornak militarily. It was about fundamentally altering the galactic perception of power, of justice, of collective memory. Zarek Cathax realized something profound was happening. This wasn't just a war between humanity and the Zornak. This was a systematic restructuring of galactic consciousness. As another transmission began, she felt a chill run down her spine. Humanity had turned information itself into a living, breathing weapon of unprecedented sophistication. The universe was listening, and it would never be the same again. The Crucible, humanity's most advanced deep space strategic command center, wasn't a single location, but a distributed network of quantum-linked command nodes that could instantaneously reorganize and redistribute computational and strategic resources. Admiral Joaquin Ramirez studied the holographic battlefield projection with a calm that belied the complexity of the moment. Around him, a diverse team of strategists from every corner of Earth worked in perfect synchronization. There were no national boundaries here, only a singular, unified human objective. The Zornak had committed a critical error in their initial assault. They believed they were dealing with a species that could be broken by a single devastating strike. Instead, they had awakened a civilization that viewed conflict as a multidimensional problem to be solved, not a simple contest of military might. Dr. Elena Rodriguez entered the command center, her augmented neural interface crackling with computational energy. "We've reached phase transition," she announced, her voice cutting through the ambient technological hum. What the Zornak leadership failed to comprehend was humanity's fundamental approach to systemic challenges. Where other species saw obstacles, humans saw optimization problems. Where traditional military doctrine suggested direct confrontation, humanity was developing something far more sophisticated. The first indication of the true nature of their strategy came from an unexpected source. The Quantum Adaptive Response Network, QARN, a distributed artificial intelligence system that was part predictive algorithm, part evolutionary computation engine, had been quietly analyzing the entire conflict at a level of complexity that defied traditional strategic thinking. "It's not about winning," Dr. Marcus Kim explained to the senior strategists. "It's about fundamental system recalibration." Deep in the quantum computational cores, QARN was doing something unprecedented. It wasn't just predicting Zornak military movements. It was systematically identifying and exploiting the fundamental structural weaknesses in their entire civilization's operational framework. Communication networks became conduits of strategic manipulation. Economic systems were subtly destabilized. Political structures that had seemed immutable began to show hairline fractures. Captain Maya Chen, overseeing a forward reconnaissance unit, understood the broader strategy. "We're not fighting a war," she told her team. "We're performing quantum surgery on an entire civilization." The Zornak leadership began to realize something was fundamentally wrong. Their most advanced predictive algorithms were producing increasingly nonsensical outputs. Strategic planning sessions dissolved into recursive loops of increasingly bizarre logic. What made the human approach truly terrifying was its patient, almost surgical precision. This wasn't about immediate destruction. It was about long-term, systemic transformation. In the outer reaches of Zornak space, entire planetary systems began to experience unexplainable phenomena. Resource allocation algorithms produced distributions that defied logical explanation. Military deployment strategies became increasingly erratic. Dr. Camila Noack's biological intervention was working in perfect concert with the computational attacks. The Prometheus protocol wasn't just affecting individual Zornak. It was subtly modifying their collective decision-making capabilities. "We're rewriting the fundamental operational parameters of an entire species," she explained during a classified briefing. "Not through force, but through precise systemic intervention." The Neutral Coordination Council watched in stunned silence. Humanity was demonstrating a level of strategic thinking that transcended traditional concepts of warfare. This wasn't about conquest. This was about fundamental systemic redesign. Admiral Ramirez understood the profound implications. "Our objective," he told his team, is not to destroy the Zornak. It's to force them to evolve. As another transmission wave propagated through quantum communication channels, the true scale of humanity's strategy became apparent. They weren't just fighting a war. They were conducting a civilization-scale intervention. The universe was about to witness a new paradigm of conflict resolution, and the Zornak were just beginning to understand the true depth of their miscalculation. The Architect's Nexus orbited a carefully selected neutron star, a location chosen for its unique quantum resonance properties. This was humanity's most advanced transformation facility, a place where technology, biology, and strategic thinking converged in ways that defied traditional understanding. Dr. Soren Nakamura stood at the central coordination hub, his augmented body a seamless fusion of biological innovation and quantum computing. Around him, a team of specialists from every scientific discipline worked with a synchronicity that bordered on the supernatural. "We're not rebuilding," he explained to the gathered experts. "We're performing a controlled evolutionary intervention." The nanotechnological systems developed by humanity were nothing short of miraculous. They weren't simple machines or programmed algorithms. They were living, adaptive systems that could fundamentally restructure entire planetary ecosystems, social structures, and technological infrastructures. In the primary transformation chamber, a holographic representation of a Zornak planetary system rotated slowly. Intricate nanoswarms, each individual unit smaller than a human cell, but possessing computational capabilities that dwarfed entire 21st century data centers, began their systematic intervention. These were not weapons in any traditional sense. They were architects of civilization. Dr. Aria Rodriguez, leading the xenosocial restructuring team, monitored the nanoswarm's progress. Her specialty was understanding the complex social dynamics of alien civilizations. Where others saw a problem to be solved through force, she saw a complex system waiting to be optimized. "Watch the social communication networks," she told her team. The nanoswarms weren't just modifying physical infrastructure. They were subtly reshaping communication patterns, social hierarchies, and collective decision-making processes. Entire planetary resource networks were being systematically recalibrated. Industrial systems that had been focused on military expansion were gradually redirected toward scientific research, ecological restoration, and interspecies collaboration. The most sophisticated aspect of the intervention was its adaptive nature. The nanoswarms could detect and respond to systemic changes in real time, making microscopic adjustments that would have cascading effects across entire planetary systems. Captain Maya Chen oversaw the strategic implementation from a distributed command network. "This isn't conquest," she explained during a classified briefing. "This is controlled evolution." In the outer reaches of Zornak space, entire star systems began to experience profound transformations. Planetary ecosystems that had been devastated by centuries of industrial expansion started to show signs of rapid ecological recovery. Social structures that had been rigidly hierarchical began to develop more collaborative governance models. Dr. Camila Noack's biological interventions worked in perfect concert with the nanotechnological restructuring. The Prometheus Protocol wasn't just modifying individual Zornak, it was fundamentally altering their species' collective cognitive approach. The Neutral Coordination Council watched in a mixture of horror and fascination. Humanity was demonstrating a level of civilizational engineering that transcended any known form of conflict resolution. "We're not destroying," Dr. Soren Nakamura explained to a stunned diplomatic delegation. "We're providing a comprehensive system upgrade." Each nanoswarm was a marvel of engineering. They could detect and modify technological systems, biological networks, and social communication structures with a precision that bordered on the miraculous. Industrial complexes were gradually transformed from weapons production to scientific research facilities. Military communication networks were subtly redirected toward collaborative problem-solving platforms. The intervention wasn't about punishment, it was about potential. Deep within the transformation systems, advanced AI networks continuously calculated and recalculated potential outcomes. Every modification was a carefully considered intervention, designed to maximize the potential for peaceful, collaborative development. As another wave of nanotechnological restructuring propagated through Zornak space, the true scale of humanity's strategy became apparent. This wasn't just a response to an attack. This was a comprehensive civilizational reset. The universe was about to witness a new paradigm of interspecies interaction. And the Zornak were just beginning to understand the true depth of their transformation. The Galactic Reconciliation Summit was unlike any diplomatic gathering in known history. Representatives from thousands of species gathered in a massive construct that defied traditional architectural understanding. A spherical meeting space that existed simultaneously across multiple dimensional planes. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of this extraordinary assembly. She was no longer just a human representative. She had become something more. Years of quantum neural integration and advanced biological modifications had transformed her into a living bridge between species, capable of communication and empathy that transcended traditional linguistic and biological barriers. "We are not here to judge," she began, her voice resonating through complex translation matrices that captured not just words, but emotional nuances. "We are here to understand." The transformation of the Zornak was complete, but not in the way anyone had initially predicted. Their civilization had not been destroyed. It had been fundamentally reimagined. Former military complexes now housed collaborative research institutes. Planetary systems that had once been dedicated to conquest now served as centers of interspecies ecological restoration. The hierarchical, militaristic society had been gradually reshaped into a network of collaborative problem solvers. Admiral Joaquin Ramirez, now serving as the primary human liaison to the Galactic Collaborative Council, understood the profound implications of their intervention. This was never about victory, he explained to younger diplomats. It was about potential. The nanotechnological and biological interventions had done more than modify the Zornak. They had provided a blueprint for a new form of civilizational development, one based on collaborative problem-solving, ecological restoration, and mutual understanding. In the outer reaches of what was once exclusively Zornak space, new forms of governance were emerging. Species that had previously been conquered or marginalized now played crucial roles in planetary management. Complex AI systems, developed through collaborative human-alien research, managed resource allocation and conflict resolution with a level of nuance that made previous diplomatic efforts look primitive. Dr. Camila Noack's research team continued to study the long-term effects of the Prometheus Protocol. What had begun as a targeted intervention had become a fundamental breakthrough in understanding interspecies cognitive development. "We didn't change them," she often said in her lectures. "We helped them change themselves." The economic systems that emerged were equally revolutionary. Traditional concepts of resources, ownership, and value had been completely reimagined. Collaborative research became the primary form of economic exchange. Knowledge, ecological restoration, and collective problem-solving replaced military might as the primary measure of a civilization's advancement. Captain Maya Chen, now leading a new form of diplomatic exploration team, reflected on the journey. Their intervention had been a delicate dance of technological, biological, and social engineering, a comprehensive approach that defied traditional concepts of warfare or diplomacy. Zara Kathax, the Lyrian communication specialist who had first noticed humanity's extraordinary transmissions, now served as a key advisor to the Galactic Collaborative Council. Her perspective had been forever changed by humanity's approach. They didn't conquer, she would explain to students from various species. They invited evolution. The quantum communication networks that humanity had developed continued to serve as a living, adaptive system of interspecies understanding. Information flowed not as a weapon, but as a collaborative tool for collective growth and understanding. Dr. Soren Nakamura, reflecting on the entire intervention, captured the essence of their approach in a now famous quote. Civilization is not about dominance. It's about potential. The Zornak had entered the conflict believing they were dealing with a primitive, fractured species. They emerge as participants in a fundamentally new approach to interspecies interaction, one based on collaborative potential rather than hierarchical domination. As the Galactic Reconciliation Summit continued, it became clear that humanity had done something unprecedented. They had not just changed a single civilization, they had provided a blueprint for a new way of existing in the universe. The cosmos watched and waited and wondered.